items today, which means we can press on. Minutes of the meeting held 16th of October 25. Any members have any further comments or queries? Yes, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Obviously, from July, we've been expecting an update on White Rose rail station. We discussed it briefly last time, and there's still nothing this time. So are you in a position to give us an update, please?
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. I was also asked about this on Message the Mayor and the BBC. We are so nearly there, near a conclusion of this stalling. As I've said many times, this was a scheme before my time. It's not how we do it if we were going to do it again. We've got ourselves in a position where it's about agreements between two different parties. We have invested in White Rose. We want the diggers to be back, and we are working, my teams are working flat out to try and support a conclusion. But I've said before that we hope to have activity on site in the new year, is what we hope. But it is not in our gift, it is down to others. But we are pressing and making the case about what can we do to help. So I know it's very frustrating for all concerned. It's frustrating for TransPennine, it's frustrating for everyone, but we wouldn't do this again in this way. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the update. Is it possible that members could get a private briefing at least so we can understand where we are and what's likely to happen next?
Ben.
Yes, we'd be happy to offer that, and our expectation is to still be able to bring a paper to the next Combined Authority meeting in January.
But thank you, and to the public for their patience as well, because it's deeply frustrating when it's out of our gift to solve this problem. So thank you for raising it. Okie doke. Otherwise, are we content to accept the minutes? Brilliant, thank you. Okie doke. That is an accurate record. Right, moving on to the Mayor's update. Well, since we last met in October, so much has happened, so bear with me as I try and rattle through the events. I was fortunate enough to be invited to attend the Global Mayors Summit as part of C40 and COP30, meeting with mayors, leaders and innovators from across the globe to discuss how we can accelerate local approaches to address climate change. I'd like to put on record my thanks to Bloomberg Philanthropies for generously supporting my attendance at the conference. At the end of October, I attended the Regional Investment Summit in Birmingham, where I was championing investment opportunities in the region alongside the Chancellor and Ministers, the third of these conferences, organised under successive governments. And from a mayoral perspective, it was the best one yet, and we got some fantastic meetings with some good outcomes. I've also had a series of ministerial engagements, including the Energy Secretary Roundtable with Mayors, the Secretary of State for MHCLG, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury and the Transport Secretary. Most of these were ahead of the autumn budget, as you would imagine, where I took the opportunity to press the case for our region, which I'll come on to later. I was also able to welcome Miatta van Buller, the Local Growth and Devolution Minister, to Leeds last week, alongside with Councillor Lewis, where we worked with, well, were shown around Seacroft and the ambitions for the Pride in Place money, the £20 million that's going to be invested in Seacroft. And the Minister also met with my inclusivity champion, Fatima Khan Shah, talking about communities and social cohesion. Last week, as you know, we had the autumn budget, loads and loads of positive announcements for West Yorkshire. A £2 billion integrated settlement for the next 4 years, moving us forward in devolution, giving us those freedoms, flexibilities that we've been talking about since I became your mayor. We're going to transform our economy with this integrated settlement. The Leeds City Fund, giving the City Council more control over how business rates can be spent. The devolution of the National Housing Delivery Fund, with over £1 billion allocated notionally to West Yorkshire. The overnight visitor levy that you'll know mayors lobbied for, with hundreds of millions of pounds to deliver, so we can raise funds to support the growth of our economy. I misspoke about hundreds of millions. For us, it is not hundreds of millions from the visitor levy. It's probably one or two, but for some regions, it is very impactful funding fiscal revenue. Access to 500 million mayoral revolving growth fund, at least 90 million will come to our region, and one of 5 place-based budget pilots which are going to help us transform the way in which we're delivering public services. And this is obviously on the back of the 30 million for innovation, the 25 for the creative industries. And it's such a lot, and honestly, thank you to partners, officers, working alongside government to influence their thinking and shape the announcements. There's a paper later in the meeting where we can begin to get into what impact the announcements have on our overall budget, which we will set out at our next meeting in January. Key to influencing the budget has been the Mayoral Council and the right to request process for further devolution, which, as you know, the visitor levy wouldn't have happened. And the Mayoral Council is taking place today. I've had to give my apologies, unfortunately, due to this meeting, but I know colleagues are discussing employment and skills devo and strategy with the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions. At the October Combined Authority meeting, members requested, as we've heard, the White Rose Station. We've covered that off. These negotiations, as I say, are at that pivotal stage, and we will have something in the papers for the next meeting. And just to really reassure you, we are fully committed to working in partnership to deliver this project for the community and for business, because it's going to be a catalyst for growth and opportunity across our region. So let's turn to the rest of the agenda, unless there's any comments on Mayor's update. No, thank you. So moving on to item 6, the Weaver Network, fares, ticketing and retail strategy. No decisions today on the setting of fares, but this looks to outline what the policy is we're going to use to determine what fares will be. And this is a really exciting development, moving us on in that Weaver journey, that integrated transport network, making it a reality, helping local transport be better connected. So if I could pass directly to Helen Ellerton, Head of Transport Policy, to speak to this item. Helen.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so the fares, ticket and retail strategy has been developed to set out the CA's kind of strategic ambition for an integrated multimodal fares, ticketing and retail offer. We're coming to the CA today to ask for endorsement of the strategy following discussion at Transport Committee in October and at an informal member session earlier last month. The intention is that the strategy will return to the Combined Authority later next year with a full rollout plan, including product design. And this strategy will therefore, through that, be balanced through commercial and financial considerations, as fares will be a key part of that mix. The strategy responds to the local transport plan, which is moving towards adoption over the next few months, and a multimodal approach, recognising that bus will come first, but mass transit and rail are also part of the Weaver network. So the purpose of the strategy is to guide development of that multimodal fares, ticketing and retail offer. And under the Weaver network, the key elements include an integrated journey planning, ticketing and a mobile app. The emerging proposition that's set out in the paper will continue to be developed through the strategy, and service development, customer insight and engagement will all be really important in shaping that process. The strategy will guide the CA through that transformation to make bus franchising operational from April 27, and through a kind of a fares, ticketing and retail kind of perspective to make sure that we hang on to those principles that are set out there and the policies through the local transport plan. The draft strategy includes a set of objectives which are in the paper at section 3.18 and a target proposition which we will be working through with a short-term plan which is also in the paper through to a longer term which builds into that multimodal approach. That's all I was going to say, but thank you and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Helen. Any questions on the strategy? Councillor Anderson and then Councillor Holsworth.
Just on page 20, under paragraph 4.1, there are no risks currently arising from this report. Now, are we sure that there are no risks? So, for example, risks that I could foresee is that if we were to bring forward, say, allowing disabled people to use their bus pass before 9:30, welcome as it is, if you were able to do it, you would have done it just now. So there must be a risk as to why the reason you're not doing it just now. So I would have expected that to be put in here. I would have also expected to see something about the financial envelope. Are you working within a financial envelope that's going to be constrained, or have you got an open, you can spend as much money as you like, or have you been told by Kate that you must do this and you can only spend X amount on it? So I would have expected those things to be constraints that were going to be put into it. Otherwise, the public might think they can get more than they're actually going to get. So I would not just those exclusively, but I think we need to put some more risks in the plan.
Helen.
Thank you, and thank you for that. I think it's important to remember at the moment that this is a strategy, with a draft strategy, which sets out that ambition, and there are obviously a number of risks around through that, which will come through in the wider kind of bus franchising customer proposition approach. In terms of that funding piece that you recognise, as we were just setting out in the paper, the strategy sets the ambition, and the plan and an approval for that plan will come through later in the year, for which the considerations around that financial piece will be done. So the plan to deliver the strategy will be set within that context.
Okay.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, Councillor Anderson knows, because we've had conversations in the lead up to this meeting, that the way that we handle risks in these sections of these papers is something that we're looking at. We have to strike the right balance between going into the risks involved in the delivery of a strategy that's being sought for endorsement or approval today, where the document itself actually doesn't cause those risks to change. So we always try and strike the right balance. I think the steer that Councillor Anderson is giving us as officers is for us to think a bit more about the risks of the delivery of the strategy that are material to the paper, and hence are material to members in their decision about whether to agree to the adoption of the strategy or not, in which case point well taken. But what we won't do is go into every possible risk associated with the implementation and delivery plan, because that's for a future paper.
Thank you. Councillor Holds.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a similar question, I think, to Councillor Anderson's. As the West Yorkshire Combined Authority is extremely keen to encourage disabled people to return to work or to expand their working hours, I wondered why it was that people with disabilities cannot travel on buses until after 9:30 in the morning with reduced or exempt fares. And is this something that could be considered, given that it seems to be a bit of a clash with the stated objectives of encouraging people into work?
Thank you, Councillor Holdsworth. And it's something that I've been very keen to look at, because far too many people with a disability want to work, but there are too many blocks in the way. I've been lobbied from many angles of people who, older people who want to travel before 9:30, people with a disability, young people want free travel, care leavers, etc. So when we this is the point of franchising, we can then, once we've got this strategy on fares and ticketing, we can then, knowing the financial envelope, then decide where we want to put those incentives. But your passion for equity and equality is shared with all people around this table, because it's really important that it is fair, but only once we know the full quantum of opportunity on fares will we be able to take those decisions. So Councillor Lamb and Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. There's data in the papers about people's views from the survey on pricing. What I'm curious to know is how people's bus usage relates more to frequency and reliability than pricing, and where the strategy sits in terms of, from your point of view, Mayor, which is most important? Is it protecting frequency and reliability? I think in an ideal world we'd like everything, but the world's not ideal and patronage is going down. And what I'm keen to understand, is it going down because people are concerned about the price of the ticket, or is it going down because they're concerned they can't get where they want to go when they want to go, or that the bus on an hourly service won't turn up and then they have to wait 2 hours for it.
I think the general answer is all of those things are important, but haven't we seen in Keighley with the £1 ticket the patronage has gone up, because it is very much a magnet for patronage if it's cost effective. Helen.
Thank you. So, as the Mayor has just said, all of these things are important, and I think it's about how we create that balance across the network and the fare structure. What this strategy is doing is setting out an ambition through those objectives around creating a fare structure and creating options in there that help us understand how best to place that fare in the relative context of everything else that's under discussion as well through that.
Thank you. Councillor Hinchcliffe?
Yes, just to reassure Councillor Holdsworth really, because this obviously had extensive discussion at Transport Committee as well. As you can imagine, there's lots of interest around West Yorkshire on that table. People being able to travel before 9:30 with disabilities was one group that came up, and also the fact that we're all corporate parents as well, and care leavers are very important to us. That also came up. So those two groups were particularly promoted specifically, but not exclusive to other groups as well. There's lots of other interests around that table of people who, obviously, rightly, we want to try and support them with transport, but we do need to see the quantum before we can make those decisions, I think. And whilst, you know, and we had a motion in Bradford precisely about people being able to travel before 9:30 with disabilities, and that's something one of our members particularly wants to see happen. But as you say, Mayor, it is about getting the quantum and then being able to make those decisions, and having control of the network is going to mean that we're going to have more of that power in our control, aren't we?
But also what's really important from this strategy is that we have that integrated plan that is sophisticated, easy to use, ergonomically designed, but also gives us the opportunity for extensions into rail, into tram, into electric bikes and so on. So it's really important we get it right and we future-proof it at this point. Okay, any further comments? No, thank you all so much. Okay, so are we happy to accept the recommendations of the Weaver Network Fares, Ticketing and Retail Strategy? Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? No, thank you so much. Okay, moving on to another bus-related item, Mayor's Fares update. You'll have heard from the previous item how important it is for those simple fares. Our Mayor's Fares scheme already started to deliver on that promise, having supported 83 million journeys, delivering £76 million in savings to passengers since 2022. This paper sets out an extension to that scheme while we wait for the government announcement of our level of bus funding we're going to get next year. So if I could hand over to Melissa Liebird, Head of Passenger Experience, to present the paper. And welcome to the CA, I think, for the first time, is my understanding.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Over to you, Melissa.
Good morning, everybody. So I'd like to take the opportunity to remind members that we were the first region in the country to introduce a capped fare scheme, which was launched back in September 2022. Our scheme also includes the inclusion of a cap on a day ticket as well as a single journey ticket compared with the national scheme. We're now in the fourth year of this scheme, having seen considerable benefits. Obviously, Mayor Brabin's just talked about the impact of some of those, which has been fantastic to see. Our scheme, as well as the national capped fare scheme, has evolved over time. And back in April of this year, bus operators here in West Yorkshire joined the national scheme, creating a dual reimbursement process whereby we are topping up some of the subsidies. We probably never envisaged the scheme running as long as it has, but have continued to extend the scheme, but we absolutely recognise the benefits it provides to our communities. Whilst the national scheme saw an increase in the capped fare, rising to £3 in January of this year, here in West Yorkshire, we held our fares and we delayed that until April, and we held them, having held them, for nearly 3 years at £2 previously. Even now, our single journey cap is still 50 pence less than the national scheme, helping to bring costs more in line with inflation, but whilst also trying to ensure that bus travel remains accessible and affordable for passengers right across our communities here in West Yorkshire. So prior to central government's spring budget statement in June of this year, the national scheme was assumed to end at the end of December, at the end of this month, and in good faith we also extended our scheme to align with this, but as we know, government then announced the extension to the national scheme in March 2027, apologies. So as we transition to franchising, it is hugely important for our customers that we continue to maintain stability in the network and with our fares. So everything you've just heard, obviously, in the previous item sets out a clear vision of how we want to manage our fares and ticketing in the future. And the Mayor's Fares scheme is a key part of this strategy. I think it's also fair to say of equal importance, decisions that we take now and in the near future will have implications on the fare structure under a franchise network. We're only 17 months away from our first services operating under round one in April 2027, so it is really imperative that we do get things right. Our scheme is underpinned by basic funding, and of late we have been constrained by the confirmation about what our future integrated settlement funding for 2026-27 is going to be, which meant that we couldn't take a medium-term view of what our arrangements need to be after December of this year. So the paper has set out how this can be funded, and therefore the purpose of this paper is to seek agreement to extend the scheme by 3 months to allow us to do that very piece of work as you've set out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well laid out. Excellent. Any comments on this paper? Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Just 2 quick points. One is on Appendix 1, which is embedded within the document. In paragraph 1.3, I asked at the briefing I got for an answer to bullet points 1 and 2 that by bullet point 1 you would have a 15% increase in bus patronage by 2025. Now I accept that 2025 is not finished yet, so I know you can come back at me on that one. But are you achieving that one? And the other one was 5% increase in weekday modal share of bus. Now it's not because I'm against what the mayor's doing. It's just making sure that we're using the BSIP money for the correct purposes. So in other words, we might need to prime something else in, and that money needs to be taken off of it. So it's making decisions. And the other one is, another question I keep asking is about the elasticity and the tolerance of price. So if you increase something by 50 pence, for example, how many less passengers would you get? And if you reduced it by another 50 pence, how many extra passengers would you anticipate getting as a result of it? And is there any tolerance in that price mechanism or not?
Thank you. Melissa?
Yeah, so if we start with the last one around elasticity, so there's lots of modelling options that are going on, so exactly as you've described, to look at what we need to do in terms of potential sort of fares in the future. So we would need to come back to you on that one, but we are absolutely committed, and that kind of work is going on in the background. With regards to your first point, which was around the patronage, obviously you did answer the point. We do need to wait till the end of the year for those fixed, to get more of a sense of our patronage and what the percentage looks like. So again, we can come back to the committee with more of an update.
Fine.
And I'm really sorry, but I did miss there was one of the questions that you asked, and I missed that one.
No, the other one was about, no, that's fine. No, we'll park that.
Thank you. I think that's a good action to take away, is just that understanding of the impact of mayor's fare, and also reductions, etc. And remember, we are still 50% under the cap of £3, which I think the public do recognise we're trying to help in a cost of living crisis. Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, just to manage expectations a bit as well, I'm not sure it's ever going to be as straightforward as saying 50p plus 50p means that fewer passengers, because there's other things we're all doing, like putting segregated busways in, increasing timetable, increasing the network. The network reduction has an impact on patronage because people obviously can't use a bus anymore. So there's lots of moving parts of this, and I think when we've looked at it before at Transport Committee, we've not been able to get to a straight line to say plus 50p equals this many number of passengers. So I just want to manage expectations of what we're likely to see at this committee going forward. We all know what's needed is a mixture of a greater network, better coverage and better fares, and you know, achieving the sweet spot of that is a challenge.
And reliability as well. And it does echo the question that Councillor Lamb raised earlier. It is such an interconnected piece of encouragement to get people to use the bus. It isn't just reliability, it isn't just fares, it is a multitude of expectations from the public. Ben?
I think actually you both covered the point I was going to make, which was essentially that the kind of elasticities that Councillor Anderson is talking about, their starting assumption is all other things being equal. And I think what you're hearing is that all other things haven't been equal in recent years. But I think the point about bringing a note back that sets out what we do know, absolutely in line with Councillor Hinchcliffe's view that we have to manage expectations. Given our plans for bus franchising, is sensible to set out that kind of what we do understand about the nature of the bus market at the current time.
Thanks, and certainly it does echo what the public have been saying to me in some areas across West Yorkshire, Wakefield for example. What's the point of the mayor's fare if the bus doesn't come? I've just lost confidence in the bus. So, you know, it could be a free bus, but if it's not coming, you're not going to use it. So that's a very good response. So thank you very much for that, Melissa. Councillor Holsworth.
Thank you, Mayor. It's just a quick question on point 4, risks and mitigations. Potential service cuts by operators may require the combined authority to subsidise service or reduce the network. And then 4.3, there remains a risk that the reallocation of £4 million of funding from network enhancement reduces the combined authority's ability to respond to future as yet known network reductions by commercial bus operators. What do we think the response might be should commercial bus operators actually cut even more routes? And if you like, we've already spent the money in improving or maintaining the costs of the mayor's fares.
It's a very good question. One of the challenges for us is to keep those relationships with the bus operators to a point where they don't think, well, we may not win the franchise, let's just walk away from West Yorkshire. So it is a balancing act, and to make the offer to our bus operators that actually this is a great journey to be on, to deliver a franchise bus network for West Yorkshire. And definitely that is the direction of travel for the whole country, that buses are becoming franchised. But that's why it's in that section, because it is a potential risk, as we have seen bus operators withdraw routes, and it has been difficult to then reinstate, especially if they just change the timetable rather than withdrawing altogether. Councillor Holsworth.
Yeah, I'm just very aware that First Group have completely withdrawn from Cornwall. So they've taken all their network out of Cornwall. And that is a concern. I'm not suggesting that that would happen in West Yorkshire, it's a very different area, but it is kind of there, that possibility.
That's why it's in the risks section. Did you want to comment, Ben? No? Okay, thank you so much. And those poor people of Cornwall with no bosses. Okay, let's just approve the extension to the scheme to the 31st of March 2026 and in so doing allow for work to be done to consider a further extension beyond this time, potentially to the 31st of March 2027. This decision for a further extension will be delegated to the Chief Executive in consultation with myself and Chair of Transport Committee. The extension of to March the 31st, 26 requires a reallocation of £4 million of available BSIP funding. All those in favour of the recommendations, please raise your hand. Those against? Those abstaining? Thank you so much. That is approved. Okay, moving on to another bus-related topic. Consultation on proposed withdrawal of 6 school bus services. Really important piece of policy for the CA, and which board members will recall we approved an updated policy of this when we met back in July. And following that approved policy, we've been out to the 6 schools identified, undertaken a consultation on our proposals. I would now like to hand over to Councillor Susan Hinchcliffe to introduce the paper, and then Rachel Jones, Head of Mobility Services, to present the paper. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Mayor. This proposal has obviously been out for some time, has been through scrutiny twice, I think, and through Transport Committee a few times as well. So there's been extensive conversations about this, and thank you to everybody, members of the public who took part in the consultation and fed back. We have listened, and the Combined Authority officers have worked hard on each of those particular routes to find what the best accommodation is for children living in that area. In some instances, that means changing the commercial bus service to make sure it services those schools better. In one instance, it means actually withdrawing the proposal. So I'm happy for officers to go through the detail, not to steal their thunder, but I'm satisfied we've got to a good place with this proposal after lots of conversations.
Thank you, Councillor. Rachel.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hinchcliffe and Mayor Brabin. To put my glasses on, thank you, and good morning, everybody. So yes, as you'll be aware, we went through a statutory consultation process earlier in the year to review and update the travel to school policy. As you'll know, this saw very good levels of engagement with over 3,700 respondents. This policy was approved by yourselves, as we've already mentioned, at the Combined Authority meeting back in July, and it sets out where the Combined Authority will use its discretionary powers under the Education Act of 1996 to provide dedicated home-to-school bus services to secondary schools within West Yorkshire, to support travel for children and young people aged 11 to 16 years old. And this policy is separate to the statutory duty for local authorities to provide free travel to school to support young people who are eligible for free travel. So since approval in July, we've been through a further detailed consultation process regarding 6 dedicated school buses that are out with the new policy. And where we considered there to be a potential suitable alternative, either a suitable walking or active travel route or a public transport service. These 6 schools were also referenced in the report that was approved by the Combined Authority in July. So the consultation process was open for 4 weeks from the 29th of September until the 26th of October. Now, to ensure that the consultation received appropriate levels of engagement and response, a targeted approach was adopted with parents and carers of current service users, the schools themselves, local councillors and MPs, and these were all contacted directly by us. And we also asked schools to share details of the consultation with parents where the Combined Authority did not have direct contact information, and also to share it with the feeder schools as well, the feeder primary schools. So as you'll have seen in the papers, we received 129 responses altogether, and these were from parents and carers of young people using the services or planning to use the services in future. We also got responses from young people themselves and also 2 of the schools involved. The St Mary's Menston feedback was also endorsed by the local MP and an Ilkley Town Councillor. And we also got feedback from 2 other politicians that was consistent with what was provided through the actual formal consultation process. So we've undertaken a detailed analysis of all the responses received regarding each school and dedicated bus service by looking at all the comments that we got from the respondents, undertaking an appraisal of all the feedback received, looking at the value for money for the service where that is a consideration, and completing a 2-stage equality impact assessment in order to reach the recommendations that appear in the report. We've listened and reacted to what people have told us through the consultation process. Further information and detail about the consultation process can be found in the appendices. So as a result of the feedback, we are proposing to retain 1 service and withdraw 5 services. On the service that we're proposing to retain, we thought that there was a potential safe walking route. Parents and carers told us that there wasn't, so we went out and did some survey work ourselves, and we concluded that indeed there wasn't a safe walking route, which is why we are proposing that particular service is retained. But in order to make the sort of, when we're looking at the withdrawal of the 5 other services, in order to do this, we are, as Councillor Hinchcliffe has sort of mentioned as well, looking to make tweaks to the public bus, to a public bus service to accommodate the needs of young people at one school. There is a commercial solution in another case, and we're looking at merging some dedicated school services to provide a cost-effective alternative at another school. So taking each school and recommendation in turn, it is proposed that the Combined Authority approves, with effect from the 1st of September 2026, the retention of bus service S62, which is, serves Coburn and Lawrence Calvert Academy in Leeds, as I say, based on there being no suitable active travel or public transport alternatives for students at the current time. The withdrawal of service S99, which serves Appleton Academy in Bradford, based on there being a suitable public transport alternative already available to students. The withdrawal of service B50, which serves Beckfoot in Bradford, based on it not meeting the Combined Authority's value for money criteria, and that the Combined Authority will look to work with operators to introduce a revised timetable for public bus service 615 that will meet the needs of students. The withdrawal of service C6, which serves Crosley Heath Grammar School in Halifax, on the basis of it falling outside of the scope of the Combined Authority's travel to school policy, it not meeting the Combined Authority's value for money criteria, and that there is an alternative commercial school bus service provided by Coach Travel Services that can accommodate the students that currently use that service. The withdrawal of service SM25, which serves St Mary's Menston Catholic Voluntary Academy in Leeds, based on it not meeting the Combined Authority's value for money criteria and there being suitable public transport alternatives for students. And then the withdrawal of services S64 and S66 that serve Titus Salt School in Bradford, but replace them with one service, the S69, and this is based on the S64 not meeting the Combined Authority's value for money criteria, and there are already being suitable public transport alternatives for most students who use service S64 and sufficient capacity on the new service S69 for the remainder of the students. I'd also just say that the Combined Authority notes are set out in the recommendations that the Combined Authority Education Transport Team will work with local councils, schools, internal partners and parents and carers to ensure that the proposed changes meet the needs of students that have identified with special educational needs or disabilities, who have an education, health and care plan or an education, health and care plan pending, and that the Combined Authority will work with district partners to ensure that where active travel is expected to form part of journeys undertaken for those schools where services are removed, that appropriate active travel training is made available in advance of September 2026. And then just finally, Mayor Brabin, on average around 200 pupils, as set out in the report, currently use the 6 services, which represents around 1% of the total number of young people using dedicated bus services on a daily basis. I'd also add that thousands of young people already use either walk-in or a regular public bus service to get to school each day, with around 50% of young people currently using regular buses each day to get to their school already. Finally, and as set out in the policy, we're obviously mindful of the opportunity that franchising should present to us in the future in terms of making changes to the existing network, obviously to the benefit of young people to travel to school in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel, and it is your first attendance at the CA as well. So thank you so much for that incredibly thorough rundown, and I'm sure whilst we understand what's going on, it'd be very important for parents and those pupils who are going to schools to have all of that detail. So you can now take a breath. Thank you. Any questions on that very detailed report? Thank you. Councillor Lamb.
Yep, excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to support the recommendations on this paper today, but I think there's a bit of context missing, which leads to an important question, that we're in a better place because of the consultation that's been done. We wouldn't have been there if it were not for the challenge that was raised at this meeting and the work of scrutiny on this. And when I made the challenge in July, it didn't seem particularly welcome at that time, I have to say, when I was at the board. So I hope there can be some recognition and acknowledgement that it was absolutely the right thing to raise it, the right thing that scrutiny has done. I'm grateful that you have listened and taken action, what lessons have been learned to make sure we're not in a similar position in the future, both in terms of dismissing genuine challenges and constructive points, but also in terms of making sure we do the consultations properly first time and not have to be forced to do it again.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. I would suggest we're never forced to do anything. This is a team sport, and we're happy, as you know, to take scrutiny. Councillor Hinchcliffe.
I was just going to say, obviously, scrutiny is welcome and is something we as local authority leaders are used to on a regular basis. So it is a very helpful part of the process. But of course, I think it's important to thank the parents and children who have contributed to this as well, and obviously conversations with schools as well on the ground. All that information has been very useful in getting us to this position today. Thank you.
And of course, all that information helps us when it comes to franchising further down the line. Councillor Holsworth.
Thank you, Mayor. I absolutely understand the principle of not supporting academically selective schools. But what I would say is that I've had a lot of correspondence from the parents of young people who attend Crossley Heath who live in the Greetland and Stainland ward. And unfortunately, there's no way that walking or cycling would mean that they could get to Crossley Heath School from where they live. Now, you're quite right, there are commercial bus services, but as I was saying earlier to Rachel, the problem is the bus stops, and this won't mean anything to anybody really, but it stops at Godfrey Road, which is just above Calderdale Royal Hospital, and that then leaves a walk of over a mile uphill to get to school. Now, where I think there is a problem is that we're also trying to improve the environment by discouraging people from driving cars. And I think that the problem is that the carers and parents will drive their children to school, or if not, if they've got more than one child, as the proposed commercial alternative to the school bus is going to cost, I understand, £1,600 a year. If you've got 2 children, that's quite a lot of money, and it would be cheaper actually to put the pair of them in a taxi. So I think that's a problem in terms of our concerns about the environment. And I do also think that in a way there's a presumption that perhaps the children who attend Crossley Heath have wealthy parents, and that's by no means necessary. It's not true. And there are a whole mix, obviously, but for some parents to try and find £1,600 to get their child to school if they can't take them themselves is an awful lot of money. So I just wanted to raise those concerns because there are an awful lot of concerned parents in my ward who've been raising them with me, and I just wanted to make sure that perhaps this point was brought into the open. I can see how it would work perfectly in Leeds. When I was working in Leeds, I used to see loads of young people queuing to get on the bus. So thank you.
Thank you, and I'm sure those parents were part of our consultation. Councillor Scullion.
Thank you. Councillor Holsworth, quite right, and it's sometimes hard to compare apples and pears with Leeds and places in Calderdale. And the rural areas, Councillor Holsworth is right, around Greetland, Barkisland, Ripponden, Rishworth and so on, initially seemed on the map as though there was a public service alternative. And actually the bus network, the officer subsequently found through further work, just is limited and is just not suitable. And Councillor Holsworth is absolutely right that actually there is some distance to walk and up hills and so on. And that does result in a place like Calderdale with more students being driven to school. And what has happened is that coach travel services, who already operate quite a lot of the routes to Crossley Heath School, are offering to provide a dedicated bus service on a commercial basis. I hadn't heard the figures that Councillor Holsworth talked about. But certainly in terms of other schools pay, parents pay, other arrangements are made, and certainly we will help the school to look into that. The key thing here in terms of the overall strategy of where we're getting towards bus franchising is what is the quantum of money we're talking about and how is it distributed, and how much subsidy do we give to particular things. And in this case, given the commercial offer is there on the same route to the same school and to the school door, the combined authority won't be contributing towards the cost of the service. But that means that full cost recovery will be at the expense of the parents or, as I said, the school, which is what happens in many, many other areas. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarity that's very specific to Calderdale. It's much appreciated. Thank you, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My question about lessons learned wasn't answered.
Ben.
I thought it was answered by Councillor Hinchcliffe, but I can pick it up if that's helpful. The key thing is, as Councillor Hinchcliffe said, that we welcome scrutiny, and Councillor Anderson and I meet regularly to talk about the work of scrutiny and how that is influencing the work of and changing the work of the combined authority. I think in terms of this, the work that was started over July, the scrutiny session that was held was useful, I think, for three reasons. One was that it helped resolve any confusion about the difference between the bringing of a policy and the application of that policy, and we've been able to separate that out much more clearly, as Rachel has done today, and show that which is the second point, that the consultation that was undertaken would be separate to the consultation on the policy, and that's been done in the way that Rachel has described. The third thing, I think, is one that we've definitely picked up on, which is ensuring that the wording of our recommendations is very clear, and that there's no ambiguity in what we're saying. And again, we've tried to take those lessons on board. So I hope that shows we've definitely been listening to scrutiny. Always welcome scrutiny's engagement in the work.
Thank you. And Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, just didn't we have a paper on this at the last I don't know if you were here at the last CA meeting, but we had a whole paper on this, scrutiny and everything. So I'm not sure what more we can say now, really. Thank
you. Obviously, if there's still questions that you want to raise, Councillor Lamb, I'm sure you can do that outside of this meeting if there's things that you still feel you would like to know. Okay, any further comments on that item? No? Thank you so much. So are we happy to recommend we retain one school bus service to Coburn School, Lawrence Calvert Academy in Leeds, and withdraw 5 school bus services to Appleton Academy, Beckfoot School, Crossley Heath Grammar, St Mary's Catholic Voluntary Academy and Titus Salt School, effective from the 1st of September 2026. Those in favour of the recommendations, please raise your hand. Thank you. Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. One abstention, Councillor Holdsworth. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 9, Healthy Working Life Plan. This is an update to our plan. We've already approved this previously at the CA, but in line with the government's guidance for developing regional Get Britain working plans, this amends the plan we agreed earlier this year. We were ahead of the game, I think, with a wider focus on regional labour market challenges and actions for a healthy working life system. Partners to mobilise to address the challenges. Could I hand over to Felix Kumian-Pofo, please, Director of Inclusive Economy, Skills and Culture, to present the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. As you just set out, earlier in the year, we produced our work and health plan that allowed us to set out what the evidence was saying and how we would then, as a group of partners, work together to support people who were economically inactive, particularly due to health reasons. And as we've said before at this meeting, in West Yorkshire, there are about 100,000 or so people in that category. We've developed that, and that has allowed us to then move on the work we're doing with Healthy Working Life, using all the funding that has come to us. The government produced at national level, the government produced the Get Britain Working Plan, and all areas were then required to produce local versions of this. So what you've got today is ours. It simply updates what we've got, as the Mayor said, We did not go to town to do a full report again, so you see this one does not have a lot of the evidence and outcomes and indicators because we've done all that work. What this does is to broaden out the scope so that where we initially reported or focused very heavily on economic inactivity, this looks wider at the labour market, and the challenges within that. And again, as you would see, we end up focusing on three broad areas as exact alignment with the work we've done before. System leadership and how we as a group can work together to make sure the system is working for our residents. Person-centered support to make sure that we are leaning into lived experience and we're using that to design public services and then to deliver that. And then making sure employers, especially small businesses, have all the support they need to be able to do what they have to do. So that's this. The DWP signs this off if you are minded to approve it, and it then allows us to have the base, the policy base, to direct the rest of our work. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Felix. Any questions on healthy working life? Councillor Lamb, Councillor Anderson.
Yes, thank you. 2 points on it. So, and I made these to Felix privately as well, so there won't be a surprise. So the first one is, it read to me like an organisation with a big HR department writing to organisations with big HR departments. And a big part of this is actually delivering to small business. And the 2 points, as someone who runs a small business, it didn't feel like it was aimed at people like me, employing a small number of people. And the second aspect of that was, the only reason I know about any of this is because I sit at this table. If I was purely a small business person, how would I know and that I could access any of this? And so I think there's a bit of work. It's really important that we do this, but I think the language and support needs to be aimed at those companies where the HR department is also the chef, is also the cleaner, is also the person running payroll and doing plumbing and so on, and that we also raise enough awareness that people know there's help available to support them, because it is a big challenge when we have to support people with all manner of health problems, and one person can be 25% of a workforce, and it needs to be aimed differently in that setting. So I think it's a really important piece of work, really valuable, but it's just making sure it is properly aimed at small businesses and easy for them to access.
Thank you. And I do agree with you that SMEs could potentially really benefit from this. And I was at an event where I was asked a question by a woman from Kirklees who ran a window cleaning business, a small business, but if you lose one member of staff, it does impact on your outcomes. I'll take all the questions, Felix, and then come back to you. Councillor Anderson, then Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Just briefly, you've only, in paragraph 12, you've only outlined one appendix, Appendix 1, which is the actual Healthy Work-Life Plan. It doesn't append anything as to, you've mentioned in your presentation that you've come up with the outcome, but the baseline measures, and also who's going to do it. It's going to be the economy partnership that are going to assess whether you've actually delivered against those outcome measures, or is it us, or who is it that's going to... I'm not saying you've not done it, by the way, I'm just saying it's not in this report.
Thank you. Councillor Hinchcliffe.
So, yeah, partly to answer colleagues' questions there, but also I just think to put it into a bit of life around this subject as well, because this is a very, obviously, inevitably a dry paper, but just to show how important Employment West Yorkshire is, that obviously funded by the Combined Authority. I've got a case study here of a woman who was registered in the summer, economically inactive, on benefits, facing mental health challenges, obviously low confidence. The tailored support that was given at Bradford through Employment West Yorkshire, with skills assessment, CV support, counselling with VCS partners, and addressing barriers and building her confidence, meant she was able to attend recruitment opportunity and match to local businesses, attended more recruitment workshops, meet the employer sessions, and now she's successfully been offered a position in the hospitality sector in Bradford and is now working and training in that role. And that's from August till now. So it just shows that it's transformational for people's lives if we get this right. And I do think working with the Combined Authority through the local authorities in Employment West Yorkshire, and then connected with the VCS sector as well, really supporting people where they're at to get them into employment opportunities. And the business, I won't say the name, but the business that this person's been matched with and has now got employment with is a small business actually in the hospitality sector. And because the local authority is close to those SMEs, then we can access those opportunities. So I think it just shows what the size of the prize is here, and just puts a bit of flesh on the bones. I thought that'd be helpful, really, just by the structure that we've got in place, and we need to make sure that's sustained going forward.
I think that's really a point well made regarding the 360 about people's lives, that it's not always, let's look at your CV and then you're ready to work. There are many other obstacles to work, and particularly I know it is a challenge for business when you have someone in front of you that has been unwell, and the confidence that you need as a business to take somebody on. So we are working very closely with businesses to give them the confidence and support, and also, for example, getting graduates into SMEs and supporting that relationship as well. We're doing a lot of that hands-on guidance that's is the difference between success and failure in an employment situation. Councillor Scullion.
Thank you. Councillor Hinchcliffe has prompted me to add one from Calderdale, because I was slightly sceptical about some of this, really, in terms of that kind of targeted thing, and particularly around the health aspects. And I've got an example from Tomerdon, in the far end of our borough, where our local employment hub with combined authorities help set up a stall in Tomerdon Market. You know, it's the message is going to where people are, rather than making them go to an office in Halifax or Leeds. Going to where people are, that one-to-one personalised support, email, phone, the whole person thing, as you say, in terms of somebody having had a mental health episode in the background and working through that. But the other thing, it comes back to what Councillor Lamb says, actually what our team locally have been doing very much is actually talking to employers and making those connections. I think the challenge for us is, and as Councillor Hinchcliffe said, this person just got a job in September, and put something in our local Halifax Courier paper about this. But the question is, how do we actually really push that and scale it up? And that's why the Trailblazer and Accelerator money is very important. We really need to roll this out, actually, and get some publicity about it, that people are genuinely getting jobs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mandy, a business advisor.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's a fantastic paper and a great piece of work. Healthy businesses need healthy people, and healthy people need healthy businesses. They're symbiotic, and so the collaboration within this is you know, absolutely trailblazing, I think, and will change that dynamic. We need businesses to understand, if they don't already, what they can do to best maintain a healthy workforce so that people don't drop out, but also they need their talent pipeline in front of them to be increased, because many businesses are talking about skill shortages. And this is one of those solutions. I think the point that you make, Councillor Lamb, is really important about engagement into what's going on in the ecosystem. And that's always been a challenge. As a business myself, I didn't even know that the labyrinth existed, let alone how to find my way through it. So the work that we're doing around a Team West Yorkshire approach through all stakeholders will help with that. The new website, as we work on that, will help with that. But it's on all of us to make sure that businesses in our areas know more about what is available to them, either through the Combined Authority or partners. And this is one of those opportunities to get more involved.
Thank you. Any further comments? Super. Would you like to respond, Felix?
I will very briefly, Mayor, if that's okay. The point about not enough SME approach, we'll take that on board. We'll see what more we can do. But I just want to reassure the councillor that that is very much not the case. And almost everything we've done has actually been with small businesses, because a lot of the evidence tells us that it is small businesses that struggle the most to either find the information or to be able to support employees in the way that they need to be. So the work that we're doing with the pilots that have been launched and the incentive programs that are out there are almost, not exclusive, but almost all of it geared towards SMEs. Councillor Anderson asked a question about governance and then about documentation. So we have the Healthy Working Life Board, which the Mayor chairs or co-chairs with the ICB. There's a program board that I co-chair again with a counterpart from the ICB, and they report into this board and into the Economic Committee. In terms of documentation, we can never win. So I could have packed this, and I think Ben put his foot down, said, right, too many documents in this, crack back. So we had to strip some things back. We have shared everything with you. So you have the work and health plan that has come here already. You have the evidence base behind it. You have all the delivery plans that have gone in, which we are using to inform the work that we're doing. You have all the documents that we use to set up these various boards and the programs that we talked about. But I'm very happy to share all of that with you again, if that is helpful. But rest assured, we can't move a penny without 2 million pages of delivery plans and KPIs signed off by 2 million boards ending up in the Treasury before anything goes anywhere. So we've got that, and I'm happy to share that, and their dashboards being pulled together. I think the other questions were dealt with in the round, so I'll leave that. Thank you.
There might be some hyperbole there about the millions of pages.
Bit.
But Ben?
Just to respond to Felix's point, that it is true that I am trying to get officers to write shorter combined authority papers and put detail and lengthy documents into annexes, and I'm going to continue to do that. Thank you.
Okie dokie, good stuff. That's what we like, brevity. Can the CA approve the Healthy Working Life Plan? Those in favour of the recommendations, please raise your hand. Thank you. Those against? Those abstaining? Thank you. Moving on to item 10, Region of Learning and Creative Strategy and Adult Skills Plan. This focuses on one of my key commitments when I was re-elected last year. We cannot achieve our economic ambitions without improving the skills of West Yorkshire's residents, and this strategy is key to delivering that. A key element is the Adult Skills Plan, considered at the recent Economy Committee and has been refined based on a steer by the committee. So thank you to Councillor James Lewis for the leadership there. I'll come over directly to you, Felix, to talk us through the paper.
Thank you, Mayor. When Adult Skills was devolved to the Combined Authority a few years ago, we had to pull together what at the time was referred to as the Adult Education Budget Strategy. That now has come to the end, or coming this year to the end, early next year to the end of its working life. This Region of Learning and Creativity Strategy will replace that, and it will reset using the paper that has just come before and the evidence that we referred to and other pieces of evidence. It will help us reset and to set out very clearly what our strategy is and how we are going to take what you approved in December last year, the local growth plan around the importance of skills and creativity as one of the 5 key priorities in the local growth plan, how we are then going to blow that up into a set of actions that we invest in. So that work is underway, and what you've got right now is not the draft strategy document, but we are developing that in tandem with the Adult Skills Plan. The Adult Skills Plan is a commissioning document. It's a market-facing document which tells the training providers and colleges out there what we will be buying as a result of all the work that's going on. Normally we'll bring this one second, but we have to bring it now so we are ready to go to market in time to deliver. So the reassurance I'm giving you is that the strategy is being developed at the same time as the plan. They're reinforcing each other, but we need the plan hopefully approved by you today so we can get ready to go to market, and there will be no gap then in our provision. This is based on evaluation that we've done, which helps us to understand what we're doing right, what we've not done right since Adult Skills was devolved to us, and the adult skills plan then takes it on from there and gives a sense of what we're looking to prioritize. In the local growth plan, we said we will prioritize, make sure we work to halve the number of people with no or very low qualifications, and we'll increase the number of people with level 3 qualifications. This is beginning to put that in action. It's a region-wide ambition, so it doesn't mean we'll do the same thing everywhere. We need to make sure we are meeting people where they are, but that is the overall ambition. These are the priorities that we are hoping you're happy to approve in this plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And certainly when we're talking about tackling the cost of living, if people have greater skills, they have more opportunities to earn. And just alongside this, it's a different topic, but just for the board's knowledge, that 2 of our local regional projects in the region of learning, the Mayor's libraries for primaries, and also the work that we've been doing on, just completely escapes me, the libraries for primaries in West Yorkshire is now a national programme, and the Poet Laureate, thank you Felix, the Mayor's Young Poet Laureate that was a regional project has now also been rolled out nationally. So we are really ahead of the curve when it comes to how you approach learning in the round, that it's not just about GCSEs, it's also about those soft skills as well. So I'm really pleased that libraries for primaries in particular, 15 million has been allocated to primaries and secondaries to have libraries across the country. So we did take a leadership position there. Are there any comments on this particular approach, this skills plan? Thank you, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to propose that we add, the irony, I'm not sure if it's one word or two to the strategy, but to put lifelong ahead of learning. And I think this is actually one of the most important pieces of work that the Combined Authority can do. And the reason I say that is reflecting back to my school days when the digital and technology offer was one computer on a trolley and a Betamax video that got wheeled out on the last day of term every year to...
You're not that old. Councillor Lamb, you're not that old.
I know it's a surprise, but yeah, and I can see I'm not alone in the room either. And did that equip me for the economy of today? No. We have to keep learning and adapting all of the time. And you imagine, while schools are a very different place now with whiteboards and all manner of technology, the pace of change is huge. And I think we have to create a culture where people don't see it as a weakness to be constantly learning. We have to be ready to adapt in all of our workforces. And I think putting the words lifelong at the head start of this strategy would really send a clear message to people that that's what we should all be doing. We should all be looking to learn, develop our skills, and that is how we're going to get more productivity and keep developing and growing as a society.
Thank you. Our strategy is definitely that escalator of learning. You can get on and off at any time in your life. And our mantra is every day is a school day. We're all open to learning. I'll come back to you, Felix, when I've taken some questions. Councillor Hinchcliffe?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a few conversations about this paper, and I think this is probably came out you know, a bit early to be able to change the paper, but I think 3.10 obviously talks about increased investment in level 3's qualifications, but just going on what Councillor Lamb just said, you know, that lifelong learning is really important, and it's not everybody can start at level 3, so the investment in level 1 and level 2 is very, very important. Otherwise we're never going to get people to level 3. You've got to start somewhere. So just some reassurance that that is going to be in there and reviewed accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we have too few people in comparison to other regions at level 3 and level 4, so that is our challenge as well, isn't it? Councillor Anderson.
Just again, hopefully this is just a yes or a no from Felix. In Appendix 3, just to try and see...
What are you saying, Councillor Anderson?
No. What I mean is, I'm not expecting a detailed explanation on this point. In Appendix 3, on page 37 within it, the outcome measures, bearing in mind the answer you gave me to the previous paper, are they in existence as well? And there is a board set up to monitor the outcomes framework, and we've got the basic starting measures that we're starting already with.
Any other further questions for Felix? Felix?
Thank you very much. Just to take the last one, the Economic Committee, as we have it, has responsibility for this in our structures before it reaches this board. So we have the governance arrangements to pick that up. We have a lot of evidence that we use to do this, and again, very happy to share. So that was a bit more than a one word yes, but on the
Trying to be helpful.
on the lifelong learning, I will just check with the team to make sure we can do that, not because there's any issue, but because in this world, there's a particular technical connotation to lifelong learning and what we call it. And if we're not careful, we might then show on ourselves to give a sense that we are only doing something here, which is called lifelong learning, instead of what you actually mean, which is a bit broader than that. So we'll take that away, and if there's nothing there, then obviously we'll do that. That's absolutely fine. The point about level 3 and progression, completely take it on board. And when you read the adult skills plan, you see the priorities that we are focusing on. One is about progression. And obviously, if you don't have a level 1, you can do a level 2. If you don't have a level 2, you can do a level 3, and on and on. The importance, though, for the level 3 point is that is where you begin to build resilience in your labor market. So the more we stick with levels 1 and 2, and not work on the progression to level 3 and above, the more our labor market is at risk of shock. When right now we are in the middle of a transformation in our economy through AI, the people best placed to adapt and to upskill are the people already skilled up enough to be able to even realize the need to do this. But as I said, we are this is a region-wide ambition, and so the pace of change will be according to where each area is and what is required to support people. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. Any further comments? Thank you. So are we happy to approve the adult skills plan? Those in favour of the recommendations, please raise your hand. Those against? Those abstained? Yes, James. You nearly bought a house then. Lovely. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to item 11, business planning and budgets. This, as the report explains, is about the work done so far to prepare 26-27 budget, the steps we need to take to present a balanced budget in January, and I'm really pleased to see the integrated approach that links our budget to key priorities and outcomes. Clear there are significant challenges, but also so many opportunities as we work through the funding position and prioritisation exercise. The draft mayoral budget for 26-27 is included for consultation and scrutiny ahead of final approval in January, and also sets out the proposed 2% increase in the transport levy to support bus franchising. More work to do over December to close the gap and ensure financial resilience, but I'm very encouraged by the progress and the clear plan to mitigate pressures. As we've all understood earlier in the meeting, we are still waiting for final confirmation from government of the BSIP monies. So can I ask Kate Taylor, our Director of Finance and Commercial Services, to introduce the report and take us through any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So, as has been set out through this meeting, at the time of publishing this paper, we hadn't had the budget announcement in there, so we were missing a crucial part of information around our funding going forward. We now have that, and we are working at pace over the next month to get to a position, and we'll be working with partners, working with leaders over there to the end of the calendar year to be able to bring a balanced budget to this combined authority in January for approval. The business planning process has continued in light of that. The budget process is run as part of the integrated business process, so we understand effectively what people are looking to achieve, and then adding the pounds into there, so giving us assurance that the budget will reflect the resources needed to deliver the activity that we set out in our corporate plan for 26-27. As has been set out, the majority of the financial pressures sit within transport, particularly within the English National Concessionary Travel Scheme, which is our only statutory demand-led budget in there, and the continuation of activity previously funded by BSIP in there. the report does discharge our statutory duty to lay effectively the mayoral office budget open to you for scrutiny and consultation, and that will then come forward for approval in January, and the board, the combined authority has the time to raise any questions around that for the mayor to respond to. Next steps, as I say, we'll be working through the implications, and we look forward to bringing something back in January. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kate. Any questions on the budget? It is the draft budget, and there will be changes, and a number of changes throughout December. Okay, thank you so much. So can I get noting and approval? So can we note the approach and work to date on 26-27, including priorities, funding assumptions and emerging risks, and approve the draft mayoral budget for 26-27 for consultation, scrutiny ahead of final approval in Jan. Note 26-27 budget will include a 2% increase in the levy, transport levy to support franchising, and note that further work will continue in December to develop a balanced 26-27 budget for approval in January. Those in favour of the recommendations? Thank you. Those against? Those abstaining? One abstention. Councillor Lamb. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item 12, governance arrangements. A couple of membership changes to our committees. Details are in the report, but if I could ask Nikki Doyle, our Assistant Director for Legal Governance and Compliance, to introduce the paper and talk us through. And I hope I pronounce your name right, Nikki.
It's Diol, Mayor.
Apologies.
It's okay. Mayors, and leaders, this is a paper in relation to a procedural matter. As you know, each year at the start of a municipal period, we invite the 5 constituent councils to nominate members to sit on our various committees. There are occasions, of course, throughout the year where changes are requested, and we have received notification from Leeds City Council regarding a wish to make a change to a membership, that being the Place Regeneration and Housing Committee. They wish to terminate the membership of Councillor Jessica Lennox and replace her with Councillor Mary Harland. Leeds City Council have also further provided formal notification that they wish to nominate to an existing vacancy, that being Councillor Pauline Graham, to be nominated to that vacant position of Deputy Member to Councillor Kate Haig on the Scrutiny Committee. The recommendations that are set out in paragraph 2 in the report are there for you to consider. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any comments on these changes? No, thank you. Are we in favour of the recommendations? Please raise your hand. Thank you. Anyone voting against? Any abstentions? Thank you. Moving on to item 13, devolution. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, a brilliant announcement we had at the budget about our integrated settlement, and key to that's agreeing the outcomes framework that's going to go alongside it. And this paper gives us an update on these preparations alongside the work I've been doing to influence government to deepen and widen devolution further through to the right to request process. Sarah Eaton, Director of Strategy, Communications and Intelligence, would you talk us through the paper, please? Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. So, as I think I've said at previous meetings, we're hoping to fetch an update for transparency purposes, just to show kind of the work that is taking place both on devolution and the integrated settlement work plan. The work plan we update after every meeting in line with milestones that are kind of changing and moving. But it is attached in an appendix there, so we're just trying to make sure that we've got that programme is running smoothly. We'll be fetching different bits of that programme to yourselves as time progresses, but obviously it's time bound with kind of some of the key national deadlines that we're kind of working towards. So just in terms of the right to request, Mayor, which you just talked about, the paper just gives an update on where we are on that kind of process. So in October we received a letter from the Undersecretary for State for Devolution, Faith and Communities about guidance about how a shadow right to request might be working, and this is in advance of the formal process coming into place once the Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill works its way through Parliament and is enacted. So basically starting to kind of work out how this might operate in practice, really. And we've seen some successes quite recently around that kind of right to request. So the visitor levy, which I think was also announced in the budget, has been kind of widely reported on now, but we can start to see how this might help shape and move us along that kind of devolution journey in terms of being able to kind of propose further powers and funding and partnerships, which will expand that kind of devolution framework. So we have been asked to give some ideas forward under this kind of shadow process. What we've done is, rather than try and come up with anything new, is we've reinforced some of the kind of the measures that we've previously asked for, particularly around 16 to 19 skills and around innovation. And I think previously we've talked about being able to kind of devolve, have full devolution for the local skills improvement plan and delivery of adult skills provision within prisons, so that we've got that full ability to kind of look across the skills system, but also around DEFI capital investment as well. And in terms of innovation, we know at the minute that money does come into the region, but that we haven't got full devolution of that. So our right to request are focusing on the things that we've previously worked to the government about in terms of this approach. The government has got 6 months to kind of come back to us around this and letting us know whether or not those activities have been supported, and obviously we'll keep you all informed about that as time moves on. But clearly a really good opportunity for us to see how that kind of lever will help us move along that devolution journey as we move forward. I think at the time of writing, as everyone else has said, we didn't have the full integrated settlement quantum. And the paper kind of outlines that. But as people will know, we got just short of £2 billion. £1.2 billion of that was for transport and local infrastructure. We haven't had the bus figures, as Kate said, yet. But clearly, this is giving us, a real opportunity to kind of progress the work that we're looking at across the piece. That's quite fundamental to the work that we're doing under the outcomes framework. So as you'll see in there, we're in negotiation with the government at the minute, and up to now that's been looking at kind of the measures that form part of the outcomes framework, and also that kind of overarching set of outcomes. We have had some conversations with government. We submitted a really small set of outcomes, and that was to give us kind of the maximum flexibility that we could have in this space to deliver against our priorities, predominantly setting the kind of the local growth plan. And they have been, through that negotiation, they have been expanded out, and that is to enable us to be able to kind of measure kind of the work that we'd be taking forward. We've developed we're developing in the region a broader outcomes framework that will allow us to kind of look at the whole of the work that we're doing across the combined authority with our partners, so that we've got kind of that consistent measurement of impact, which I think feeds into some of the conversations that we've had previously under other items. But we will be held to account for the outcomes framework that is linked to the integrated settlement. So that now we've got that quantum, we're now in the space where we're starting to look at target setting against some of the measures that we're working with government to kind of agree on. And what I've set out in that paper is the timetable. Unfortunately, because the quantums come slightly later than we anticipated, we will now be moving into January and February before we kind of finalise those outcomes, but hoping that they will be signed off by ministers in mid-February. So that work is now taking place in earnest. Some of the timescales that I've been working to have been kind of condensed. And finally, I think one of the work streams that is starting to kind of get up and running now is around governance, and what we're flagging in the paper is obviously the bill will create a number of changes relating to the governments of strategic authorities, and now we've got to start looking at what the implications of that will be. So as a result of those changes, we will need to ensure that we've got appropriate kind of oversight and alignment around the 7 areas of competence. So we will be bringing that work back to a future meeting of the combined authority in due course once that work has been completed. And I'll stop there, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And certainly those outcomes, we want those outcomes to be as few, outcome expectations to be as few as possible from government, so we can make our own decisions on this money. Otherwise, it's not devolution. So thank you for the wrangling that your team have been doing with government to get it to work for us, because obviously we're in a new landscape. We're just working our way through new responsibilities. So I think if we can work as hard now to get it right as much as capacity allows, so that then we don't have to unpick it further down the line. And there are many other things that we've lined up to be put on the list for right to request, one of which is careers. to devolve careers to mayors. To Councillor Lamb's point about businesses and being able to identify opportunities for careers for young people that reflect our business needs in a way that sometimes you don't get that if that's operated from the centre. So it's a really exciting time for our combined authority and you know, for all the lobbying, we're now finally here, so let's make it work for us. Any questions? No questions. I'm astonished there are no questions on devolution. We could talk about it all day, Sarah and I. But thank you so much. So are we happy to note the progress made to prepare for the implementation of the devolution bill, including our right to request submissions for further devo, key preparations for the integrated settlement, including the development of a comprehensive outcomes framework? All those in favour of the recommendations? All those who are against? Any abstentions? No, thank you so much. Finally, the last couple of items, moving on to item 14, project approvals, investment priority 5, delivering sustainable, integrated, inclusive and affordable transport. This next project relates to transport and an update to just one scheme, in particular Harrogate Station Gateway. We recognise the importance of this scheme to North Yorkshire Council as a promoter and to York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority as joint funder. You're aware of our decision to fund the scheme in 2024, and our role has remained focused while allowing those responsible for delivery to address all matters required to deliver this project. Could I ask Simon Pope, please, our Transport Capital Programme Director, to take us through the recommendation?
Thank you, Mayor. For context, the Harrogate Station Gateway scheme involves improvements to walking, cycling and bus infrastructure in the vicinity of Harrogate Railway Station. As you point out, the Combined Authority granted full approval to the scheme in March 2024, subject to conditions. Discharge of those conditions has been delayed due to further scheme development by the promoter and a legal challenge against North Yorkshire Council in relation to the traffic regulation orders that are proposed to be introduced on completion of the scheme. The traffic regulation orders provide the basis for the Council to legally enforce parking, waiting and loading restrictions. Those orders may be varied by the Council at any time, subject to the Council following the necessary statutory process to do so. For members' clarity, North Yorkshire Council is the authority responsible for making the traffic regulation orders, and there's a clear separation of roles in this regard between them as the Highway Authority and both the West Yorkshire Combined Authority and the York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority as joint funders of the scheme. We're therefore recommending that the Combined Authority approves this change request to extend timescales only for completion of delivery from October 2025 to August 2027. The Combined Authority's funding contribution of £11 million that was approved in March 2024 remains unchanged. This extension of time will allow North Yorkshire Council the opportunity to address matters required in order to discharge remaining conditions, including clarifying their intended approach in relation to the current legal challenge, and to progress delivery of the scheme once in a position to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I wonder if Councillor Kilbane would like to say anything?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And just for clarity, obviously I'm here representing City of York Council, affiliate of West Yorkshire Combined Authority. So I'm not speaking, certainly not speaking on behalf of North Yorkshire Council or, for that matter, York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority. However, what I can say is that the Station Gateway scheme in York is nearing completion of the first phase. Anyone that's been to York recently will see the massive difference it makes when you come out of that station. You can see all of the city walls, and it's the kind of entrance to a city that a great city like York deserves. So thank you to the Combined Authority for the support with that particular project, and it does make the whole area look warm and welcoming, but the main purpose of it is to increase those bus passenger journeys, is to increase the foot journeys to the station, is to increase those cycle journeys, and it will be doing that, making people less car dependent on travelling to the station. So all I can say is from a York perspective, the scheme there is looking really good and will be very successful. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And this is a historic arrangement, isn't it, since we were previously responsible for funding projects, and now they have their own mayor. Things have changed. Any comments on this item? Yes, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just wonder if someone could talk to the risks around the legal challenge And if there's any consequence of not taking this decision today and deferring it to wait and see what happens with that, and I'm not clear what any consequences of that would be, but obviously there are some concerns and issues, and it's not identified as a risk to steal Councillor Anderson's London, in the risk section around that legal challenge. So could you just help us understand where we are with that and what the potential implications are?
Thank you. Happy to come to Simon or Nikki. Simon, you happy to take it?
Yes, I can do. Nikki, feel free to jump in. So the risks that were identified in the business case summary that accompany the main paper relate to our approved funding for the scheme in line with the current approach, but note Councillor Anderson's earlier comment about making those risks a little bit clearer. They don't in this instance relate to the risks that are owned by North Yorkshire Council as the authority responsible for the traffic regulation orders, but we can certainly look at that in terms of our approach to future papers. In terms of the risks to North Yorkshire Council in delivery of the scheme and addressing their legal challenge, the current requirements from government are that they enter into a contract for construction by April 2026 to avoid or to guarantee funding availability from government. Obviously, if the legal challenge to the traffic regulation orders was upheld, there are various options available to the promoter to address that, involving either remaking of those orders, modification to those orders, or indeed modification of the scheme to reduce the requirement for traffic regulation orders to be introduced. We're continuing to liaise with both North Yorkshire Council and indeed York and North Yorkshire Combined Authority to better understand what their proposed intentions are in relation to how they're going to respond to that legal challenge. And we will delay our decision in terms of discharge of conditions until we satisfy ourselves that the promoter has the appropriate actions in train.
Thank you. Any further clarification you need to add, Nikki?
No, I think Simon's dealt with it completely correctly. Councillor Lamb, we are not the order-making authority, so that the risk really rests with North Yorkshire County Council. But you make a valid point in regards to the funding element of it and discharge of conditions, and we'll consider that very, very carefully in due course.
Thank you. Yes, apologies, not from the floor. It's the Combined Authority meeting. Apologies. I know you've come from Harrogate, I understand. Yes, thank you. Thank you. And I think you've had a conversation with our officers, so thank you for coming and your contribution. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, so it's the other bit of the question was, is there any implication for the funding of not taking this decision today?
Nikki? Simon?
There are some elements to this in relation to action that needs to be taken by North Yorkshire in regards to some contractual elements. But if this matter was deferred, this would just mean that the change request, which goes to the heart of the scheme, would be delayed further. And it would be reasonable to make that decision today, given that the narrow decision that we're making today is in relation simply to extending the time period.
Thank you. So my understanding is that they are in that we have a duty to deliver this monies, but that we were holding for them to deliver a project. And there is no reason why, given the situation they are currently in, there is no reason why that should be withheld. Is that correct, Simon?
Yes, that's correct. Although, just for clarity, today's decision is to extend the duration of time that the scheme promoter has to deliver the scheme. The discharge of conditions, which is delegated to an officer's level, is a separate decision that needs to be taken once we satisfy ourselves that the promoter has discharged those conditions in full.
Ben, just to give us that clarity.
So what Simon is saying is that the decision to, just checking Simon, the decision today is subject to conditions. Officers will determine whether North Yorkshire Council have discharged those conditions before any funding is released.
Okay, Councillor Holdsworth.
Just quickly, I raised this point with Simon earlier in my briefing, and Simon, I asked if there was a financial cost possible to the West Yorkshire Combined Authority if the appellant through Walton Solicitors actually won the case? Would we lose any money if we voted to proceed with agreeing to pass on 11 million pounds today?
And you had your answer, so Simon, if you'd like to, Nikki?
The decision today relates to extending the time period. The decision in relation to the approval to proceed, which releases the funding, is a delegated decision, which Simon has already highlighted is subject to certain conditions being satisfied. Those decisions are yet to be made.
That is great clarity that this is just to extend the time scale. So that's the decision we're making today, which is very helpful. We got there in the end. Thank you so much. Okay, so any further comments? Right, let's take the approval. So can we approve the change request for the Harrogate Railway Station Gateway Scheme to extend the timescale for delivery to the 30th of August 2027 to enable completion of delivery with future approvals subject to assurance tolerances? Those in favour of the recommendations? Thank you. Those against? Those abstentions? Councillor Lamb, thank you so much. Okie doke, moving on to finally the minutes for information. This report provides members with details of previous committees published since the last CA meeting. And the next meeting is January the 22nd. And I just want to take this moment to wish you all the very merriest of Christmases and New Year. And Santa's helper who put the sweets on the desks. For all of us, I'm very grateful. So Merry Christmas to everyone. Thank you. And can we vacate the room swiftly, because I know that Mandy Ridyard has a very important event in here in short order. Thank you all so much. And again, Merry Christmas.